Welcome back to the Best of the Rest podcast with Sticks and Freezer. Oh, hey, Freezer.
Good, Sticks. How are you, Cobber?
Yeah, good, mate. Cannot complain.
That is the way.
So we just had Jeddah,
Ooh,
round 2.
into it.
Do you want to run us through the qualifying or do you want to start before that?
Well, I actually had a couple little just run-throughs for practice,
Fire away.
if you wouldn't mind.
Go for it, mate.
Just, Jeddah being Jeddah. A few cars touched and scraped walls as expected.
Mm-hmm.
Noticed Piastri and Stroll. Stroll, interestingly, we'll get to that one later on as well. Sargent retired after a brush on the front left. I think it just snapped his steer and that was it. Joe spun out and crashed. So that actually I think is a factor later on as well.
Sort of separating the goats of the competition to some of the younger drivers.
No comment. Well, an old goat, Bottas, he spun out, but didn't hit anything, so he just turned himself around and carried on.
Pushing the limits.
Yeah, a few other loose moments. Hamilton slid out. And he also got in the way of Sargent, which was quite bad if you've seen some of the footage of that.
I did see that in the recap on the F1 YouTube channel. That was a bit of a hairy moment. That was Sainz also involved in that?
Yeah, so I think Hamilton was the lead car as such. Sainz must have been coming up behind him, and he hasn't known that Sargent was coming through pretty quick.
On a lap.
So he's moved out the way of Sainz into the middle of the track because he obviously just saw Sainz sticking to the inside and thought, yep, all right, well, he's just going to cruise past me. Pulls out. Sargent comes flying around. Could have been disastrous.
I didn't hear any more about that, though, in terms of penalty or warnings or...
Yeah, I think maybe because it was a practice session, it's not like it's impeding, but not for like a qualifying lap time. So
you probably got slapped on the wrist and don't do it again or else you will get a penalty.
Probably, a bit of a caution as such.
Anything else stand out from the practice sessions that you wanted to note?
No, I didn't have any drivers as such in particular, but there were a few other times that people needed evasive action. I think that's just Jeddah as itself, just tight
street
track.
circuit.
Yeah, walls are there. There's not much else room for runoff or seeing cars coming. So
everyone's got to be in harmony.
Yeah, probably needs a bit more communication of what's going on. But
so qualifying then, do you want to run us through the results of the qualifying session?
Yeah, we'll do a quick run through.
Fire away, mate.
What would you like? Would you like me to start at 1 or start at 20?
Hit us with a 20-1.
20-1. So, interestingly, we actually had Zhou who did not get a time out. So he was sat in pits, and I think that was because of the crash in practice. So the mechanics were working away pretty quick. Got him out with something like 1:45 left, somewhere around there. Don't quote me on it.
Not enough time to get a lap in.
Yeah, and apparently it was only a matter of seconds, but didn't obviously get to the start-finish in time for his flyer. So
good bloody job to get that car back on the track, though.
To the mechanics.
She was a bit of a mess after his
there was
kiss with the wall.
Bits and pieces hanging off everywhere. I think it was front left kind of area, so...
She was a bit pretty shagged.
Actually, don't quote me on that one either. Probably don't quote me on most things on the podcast, to be honest.
Don't quote Freezer.
Yeah, just don't quote me at all.
Catchphrase of the pod, don't quote Freezer. All right, 19th.
19th. We had Sargent, 18 Gasly, 17 Ocon, 16 Bottas, 15 Hulkenberg. We had 14 Ricciardo. My computer's not scrolling. There we go. Well, this is why we're the best of the rest. Anyway, onwards. 13th was Magnussen, 12th Albon, 11th was Ollie Bearman. We'll have a quick little touch on our young Ollie. So that might not be a name that some of you recognise. So Science was in, obviously, the Ferrari for his first 3 practice sessions, getting increasingly sicker. Thought better go get this checked out. And then he, goes to the doctor and he's got appendicitis. So young Ollie's got to
Step up to the
step
plate.
in the car and jump straight into quali. And
He had one practice session, didn't he? Did he step in for one?
I'm not sure.
I think FP3.
I mean, as I said, just don't quote me on things.
Yeah.
I know he was in
He's
for
really,
quali.
you're really committing to this. Don't quote me on things early
Yeah,
on.
I think that's the
I
theme.
think-
That's the theme of the episode today.
I think he had 1 hour of practice to get used to the F1 car, and then he put
Right.
it into 11th, and he was very close.
Yeah, he was very, very close to knocking Hamilton out in Q2. Ended up with the 11th spot.
4/100ths of a second, of knocking Hamilton. All right, anyway, 10th
7-time world champion, knocked out by 18-year-old
on debut.
youngest F1 Ferrari F1 driver,
On debut, that's mental,
wouldn't it?
absolute mental.
So Behrman was 11th, so 10th Stroll, 9th Sonoda. Good result from him for that one, I think. 8th Hamilton, 7th Russell, 6th Norris, 5th Piastri, 4th Alonso, 3rd Perez, 2nd Leclerc, and 1st Max Verstappen.
Right.
Before we jump any further, we'll do a little bit of an overview of quali, but I just want to jump into my podium predictions. Obviously, this was race, but I just want to give myself a little shout out because my podium predictions was qualifying end result.
Oh, that's only qualifying, mate.
Yeah, I know.
It's
but,
not to the big dance.
I'm obviously not looking at the bottom of the field.
We'll just wait until the end race results, and we'll see how that all pans out, eh?
Definitely. Have you got any more on quali? I've got a couple little notes here, but what else?
Well, a few storylines, like something that jumped out to me, which again probably somewhat biased, but Oscar pipping Norris is quite impressive.
Yeah.
Stepping up the plate, second race, second season. Could be anything, this bloke, but sticking it to Norris, that's what you want to see.
Just looking at their times there, and you got Piastri did a 128.089. Norris did a 128.132.
Half a tenth.
How close is that?
But even looking through Q1, Q2, and Q3, Piastri's got Norris's number in every session.
Yeah.
Albeit by a tenth or less, but yeah, impressive. Another thing that I wanted to note was Nico Hulkenberg.
Yeah.
Unlucky. I reckon he probably had it in him to go top 10.
Yeah.
Put in Q3, which could have changed his race again. But
getting that red flag in Q2 for losing power.
Yeah, he's performed well so far. Got a little bit unlucky there.
Would have been interesting to see if he could get her up into the Q3 again.
What about you, Fraser? What stood out?
So Alonso was looking bloody quick all weekend leading up to the race. So even in one of his final quali runs, he tried using Hamilton as a toe to start his final flying lap.
Did see that, cheeky bugger.
Big brain. He's bloody switched on, that fella. I don't know if that actually improved his final time, but he did quali 4th, so he's doing something right. The only other Sonoda making Q3 and qualifying 9th, so like I kind of mentioned before, I think that's a pretty good result for him, putting an RB up in the top 10, so
Lovely.
well done.
Well, I guess that'll wrap it up for Sector 1 of the pod. We'll have a quick break and we'll jump back in with the race review. Rightio. So we're going to run through the race results real quick and then have a chat about some of the main storylines that popped up. So, Freezer.
Fantastic. So starting us off from the bottom we've got Gasly DNF, Stroll DNF. 18th Joe, 17th Bottas, 16th Ricardo, 15th Tsunoda, 14th Sargent, 13th Ocon, 12th Magnussen, 11th Albon, 10th Hulkenberg, 9th Hamilton, 8th Norris, 7th Behrman, 6th Russell, 5th Alonso, 4th Piastri, 3rd Leclerc, 2nd Perez, 1st Verstappen.
Very good. Bloody Max Verstappen dominant once again. I hate to say it, but 2 races in, he could literally win every single race this year. He's looking untouchable.
Yeah, it's starting to be an even more dominant start to the season than what we were seeing last year. So
It's scary, really.
it is scary.
Like, considering the driver alone, like, he is in top form. He's not making any mistakes. He's getting the most out of that car, and he's got the best car on the grid.
Yeah.
So that combo is just untouchable.
It is.
Sergio, though, well, so far so good.
Yeah.
The pressure of last year somewhat faded with these 2 early results. Like, he's doing what he needs to do. Yes, he's way off Max, and he can't match Max in the slightest.
Yeah, he's still 13 seconds behind, but in terms of
What he needs to do for the team.
yeah, he's doing his job.
So what stood out to you, Freezer, in that race? Any big things you want to cover?
Starting at the start of the race, Gasly was having problems with his gearbox in his formation lap. Tries to get away, obviously no good. I think it was, from what I heard, gear 6 that they couldn't pull. So, yeah, he obviously must have taken off, gone to hit 6th gear, still no go. So, yeah, he called the box straight away.
Which is unlucky. I think Alpine really need as much data as they can get to try and send themselves on the right path. They've had a rotten start to the season. Probably in comparison to teams and where they're expected to be going into the season, Alpine would have had the worst start.
Yeah.
Nobody's expecting them to be this far back. And yeah, it's going to be a long way back to even where they finished last season. So
Yeah.
got a lot of work cut out for them.
Yeah, they're look like they've got a lot to sort out down in that Alpine garage.
Everybody's talking about this result, but you can't not. Behrman,
He's got a bright future ahead of him, that kid.
unbelievable. Can you imagine 18 years old handling that moment? I've seen comments, people ragging on him, saying like that performance was nothing. Think of De Vries, he got an F1 seat after one performance. Rah rah rah. Don't overhype him. Yes, don't overhype him, but at the same time, if everybody reflects back to when they were 18 years old, and even just the pressures of exams at school was pretty full on. Put yourself in an F1 car with 1 hour of practice at Jeddah, street circuit. You can't make any mistakes there.
Yeah.
Almost puts it into Q3, finishes the race and brings it home in 7th.
Yeah, and he holds off a 7-time world champion in Hamilton, and Norris obviously directly behind him as well, who's up and coming, who just needs the car to do it.
2 gun drivers, like, unbelievable result.
And he started 11th, so he's overtaken cars. He's worked his way up the field.
Which
he's kept his nose clean, at Jeddah.
That was a big thing, and Ferrari sort of looked after him in the pit stops and gave him a half-decent strategy. I don't know whether he overtook anyone on the track.
Yeah, he pulled a couple of moves.
Did he?
He overtook Zhou on lap 14.
Right. Okay. Because Norris and Hamilton were on an alternate strategy and were chasing him down pretty hard at the end. So even to keep your nerve, knowing that those blokes
he passed
quicker.
Hulkenberg on lap 21.
He's unbelievable job, and I fully expect him to have a seat in Formula One next year. Haas, so one of the Haas drivers, you'd imagine, is going to have to give way to Behrman.
Yeah, I think pressure's on for Hulk and K-Mag now, so
100%.
might even be as simple as coming down to, who gets a better result at the end of the season.
Which is also another tricky one because those Haas drivers worked amazingly together as a team to score a point. Like, if it wasn't for K-Mag, then Hulkenberg wouldn't have finished 10th. The old K-Mag train. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant drive from Magnussen. Obviously putting aside his, 20 seconds worth of penalties.
Which is insane, but
to
valid.
Still hold up the field. Like, I know your race is done, but to have that awareness and team spirit, if you like, to know, my teammate's this far ahead. If I hold these guys up behind me enough, he will get a free pit stop, which I think he pretty well did. He only came out one position behind where he was, which I don't have it on my fingertips, but I'm pretty sure it was someone like Joe or someone like that still pitted anyway, so it wasn't a lost position.
Yeah. It was teamwork that you don't always see from two elite drivers. K-Mag to hold him up, especially through that, was it the first sector of the track or whatever, where he was going through there 2 seconds slower than what he could have been, but there's no opportunity to overtake. So those blokes were just stuck behind him. He was saving the battery up and then over the start-finish line, letting it rip, and they just couldn't quite get him.
Yeah.
Quick one for you. So the changing of the penalties from last year being 5 seconds to 10, what are your thoughts?
I think they've kind of probably brought that in a bit more because of the guys up the front of the field, like say Verstappen, for example, where he'll get a 5 second penalty, will not care because he'll be 10 seconds down the track by the time he serves it. But these guys in a midfield position, serving a 10 second penalty puts them to the back of the grid. So I don't know if I fully agree with 10 seconds because I think, when, it might even be 2026 with the car change when, the new regulations come out, these cars might become a closer pack again, and 10 seconds could take you from, podium down to like not even in the points. So I think that can be too harsh of a penalty. If it's like one of Magnussen's, was he dive bomb Tsunoda down the inside, past him, but then because the next corner he ran off, and by the time he come back on, he should have given that position back and he wouldn't have had a penalty. But it's not something that I would say would deserve a 10-second penalty. Yeah, I think there should just be more enforcement on that move was wrong. You have to give that back. And if they don't give that back, literally give them a chance to give that back, force them. And if then they decline and try and plead their case that, I don't think I was in the wrong, I'm going to review this with you after the race, and they've stayed in that position, then they found they are wrong, 10-second penalty or a grid place penalty. But, I think for something like that, maybe just needs to be more enforcement on the swap of the position and keeping that fair.
I can see why they've gone down the path of the 10-second penalty, like you're saying, or even Max, but other drivers as well. If you're stuck behind someone and you can go off track, get past them, and you can make up 5 seconds. That free air, 5 seconds is nothing. So 10 seconds makes sense to deter people from even doing that in the first place, because 10-second penalty is a more significant penalty to try and outdrive someone who's in front of you, burn them off, go off the track, whatever it may be. Then you've got to try and make up 10 seconds, which is a lot, especially if it adds on to your race time at the end, or your pit stop all of a sudden becomes 10 seconds longer. It completely changes the race. My mind also goes to, do they keep the 5-second penalty around and implement that when it's more suited than a 10-second penalty. But then you open the can of worms of the grey area between, why did this driver get a 5-second penalty and not a 10, and vice versa, and favouritism, and and then like the FIA and the stewards going to factor in, Max was the one impeding there. That was a minor incident, but because he's so quick, he should get a 10-second penalty to try and bring him back. Like, that becomes a whole can of worms in itself.
Yeah. And I've heard of people trying to say that Formula One fixes the results. So then if they try to start doing stuff like this, that's mainly from people that don't understand, like, they don't understand strategies and tyre degradation, and, they're seeing someone let a driver through quite easily and think, they're fixing the results. But that's, there's strategies, there's teams that their fight is against, and there's not. But
I guess if anyone were to be empowered to try and fix results, then having a 5 or a 10-second penalty is another extra lever that you could pull to try and fix a result, where you just don't want that to even be a factor at all.
You don't want those words to be mentioned in the sport.
No. The last thing that I wanted to touch on for the race itself was, and I've noticed not too many people seem to be talking about this, it's Behrman, obviously Behrman's weekend for what he's done, crazy. Max, other storylines here and there, but Piastri. Piastri to finish fourth is a hectic drive.
Yeah, I think he's done well to put a McLaren up there when, you've almost essentially got Red Bull locking out the top two positions every race. Like, I think it might even be worse than last season. I think there has to be a fault with the Red Bull car to not see one up there.
And so realistically, when you factor that in, you've sort of got third position is more like first position for the rest of the pack. And the rest of the pack being your team's probably second to fifth. And that also, just to backtrack towards Haas, that point is so valuable because you've almost got a top 10 that is somewhat locked unless there's an incident or a reliability issue or something. You've got your Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, Aston Martin, and Mercedes. So there's your top 10. Theoretically, that should be your top 10.
Yeah.
So to score a point at all is going to be very difficult for these mid to lower teams. So, again, hats off to K-Mag and Hulkenberg for working together like that.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Great team drive on that one.
Anything else that you want to chat about?
Well, I guess touching on your penalties as well, Perez got a 5-second penalty for an unsafe pit release in front of Alonso. Watched the footage of that one a couple of times. I know Alonso likes to try and dramatise a few things, but that was pretty sketchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some heavy braking there to avoid a collision, so...
That was a bit dodgy, that one.
Yeah, and that pushed him back because in terms of track position, I think he was only actually like 8 seconds or whatever off Verstappen, which in terms of what Verstappen's been capable of lately, that's a pretty good drive from Perez. And that brings him back a bit closer to Leclerc than what actually is on track. So you've almost got a point of best of the rest at the moment. There's almost like the two Red Bulls. Leclerc seems to be going pretty well when there's not a problem, or even if you group that and said Ferrari. And then there's another drop again to the best of the rest from there, because then we've got some pretty close results from Piastri, Alonso, Russell, even Bam, and
they're in a close pack there, all battling.
There's quite a close pack until you get to the back of Hamilton, and then there's a massive jump until Hulkenberg, big jump to Albon, and then it continues down again from there. So
a track where there's a little bit more opportunity for overtaking, it could be quite interesting.
Yeah.
Those closer packs where you can't just K-Mag and hold everyone up and people don't have the opportunity to overtake. Like, people can start building momentum lap after lap and eventually start seeing more overtaking. It'll be interesting.
So the other thing, straight back to the start of the race, is Norris had a bit of a jump at the start.
Yes, that was
Now,
interesting.
I love Norris, and I'm pretty sure I've even seen a clip where they interviewed him before the race. I don't know how far before, but he said they asked what could you do from here or whatever. I don't think they were actually essentially asking what could go wrong.
After quali, I believe.
Yeah, and then he said, I don't know, I could jump the start. And then that's exactly what he did.
Manifested it.
But then there was no penalty, and I haven't looked into why, but I believe it's because his wheels didn't go out of the...
I've heard that there's a sensor on the pit box that activates, and once that sensor activates, a penalty is then given out.
Right.
The onboard show Norris creeping over that line, stopping, going, but the sensor didn't actually activate, so that's why they didn't hand the penalty out. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, because I'm a McLaren man, so it's hard for me to say this, but I feel like that probably deserved a penalty. Because in my eyes, if you move before you're meant to, that should be a penalty. Otherwise, what stops drivers starting a metre back, trying to guess the start, and you've got a roll on before others have even left?
I think technically the rules are you're allowed to move, but as long as you don't cross over that line. But I mean, like, I guess the risk v reward of trying to time the lights and go isn't probably there.
Especially when they're a completely random thing. Like, it's literally a man pressing a button. He just decides, oh, yeah, now seems good. Off we go.
But just back to your previous point about Perez and Verstappen, I just have a question on how hard Verstappen's actually pushing. Like, it feels to me like if he was challenged by Perez, I feel like he would take it to another level.
I think Verstappen's one of those drivers who he just wants to be out there and racing. I don't think he really cares whether he wins by 2 seconds or 32 seconds. To him, it's almost like a challenge. But in saying that, and if you go back, you didn't really see it this race, but if you go back to Bahrain, I think in the first 20-odd laps of the race, he built like a 15-second lead. So he could have easily finished the race. Yeah. But... and
I guess at that point, he doesn't need to push the car as hard. He doesn't need to risk potentially putting in the wall. That's more parts. It's early on in the season. Just get the car home safe.
Yeah. I don't think he intentionally slows down and goes, I can cruise. I think he just goes, I'm that far ahead. I can start to...
Or turn the engine down.
Yeah, well, they've obviously haven't got enough fuel to finish the race. Like, they have to actually fuel manage. So he starts to manage early. He starts to tyre manage earlier and go, yep, I know that I'm going to have enough. And just save the car, save the componentry, the gearbox, less wear and tear.
Exactly right.
And just coast into the corners.
And that's the thing. Like, it's not. He doesn't necessarily need to be doing quali pace. Like, if you've got built that sort of lead, you know you're going to win the race. Why would you push to the limit? It's not worth risking it. Like, he's got the win in the bag essentially. So just play it smart, play the odds.
Yeah.
Bag the points and move on to next week.
Definitely.
Righto, mate. That'll wrap us up for Sector 2 of the pod. We'll have another short break and we'll jump back in.
Driver of the day. Do you want to lead us away?
Righto, mate. So I'll start out with my honourable mention, which I've already had a bit of a chat about. But Oscar Piastri, great performance.
Yep.
Loved it.
Yep.
Want to see more of it. Keen to see what he can do in 2024.
Yeah.
But overall driver of the day, Ollie Behrman, given the situation, his age, rookie status, being in a Ferrari, all of that jazz, finished 7th after qualifying 11th. Fantastic performance.
Yeah.
What about you, Fraser?
So my couple of honourable mentions, K-Mag. So holding up the field for his teammate Hulkenberg. Obviously, I'm looking past the 20 seconds worth of penalties. But, Haas are looking okay for Hulky to finish P10, grab a point. Yeah, and my driver of the day, Ollie Behrman.
Can't go past him,
You
can
can't. You can't. Just a fantastic drive from a young fella thrown straight in the deep end from Signs' appendicitis. Shout out to Signs. Back at the track, like 24 hours after surgery for appendicitis.
Crazy.
Mate, that guy's dedication.
And talking about being back in the car for Australia in, just under 2 weeks. So that'll be huge.
Yeah.
See what happens there. But
All the best to Signs.
righto, so another cheeky one for you then. We'll hit you with room for improvement. Who have we got this week that we want to absolute rinse? And, it may be similar to last week. But, you fire away. Freezer, what do you got?
Look, I'll start with a couple of honourable mentions this week.
Well, you don't want to be if you're a Formula One driver.
Oh, goodness. That's how much it's getting me rolled up. Obviously, I've said K-Mag's 20 seconds worth of penalties. Mate, there's a little bit of room for improvement there, I think.
Do better.
Stroll's crashed out on lap 7. Brushed the wall for the second time this weekend in, I believe, the exact same corner. This one, not as fortunate. Little snap of steering rack or whatever's going on there sent him straight into the wall.
Stroll, do better.
And I think there's some room for improvement for his race engineer or whoever that jumped on the old airwaves that asked him if he can get it back to the garage. Mate, are you watching the screen? Can you see the state of his car?
She's fucked, mate.
Mate, there is room for improvement. But my actual room for improvement, not to a driver,
Ooh.
it's actually Sauber's wheel nuts. Kick Sauber, I don't know what you're doing down there. I'm not going to jump into it too much because I don't really know the full thing, but you've got Bottas's, 50-odd second stop time
In Bahrain.
in Bahrain. And then this one, you've got another lengthy stop. They didn't actually show the stop time on what I was viewing it on, but
Fuck Joe's race.
it did. It's ruined it. Some of this could be a cause from his crash in practice, but look, wheel nuts. There's a guy that was there fiddling with his nut, and I was had to. I couldn't help it. No, there was a guy with a wheel and a wheel nut, and one can only assume that he's got a problem with his nut. So I couldn't help myself again. Anyway, Sauber and their wheel nuts. Hopefully this isn't a proper problem, because if they're going to have extended, plus 20 kind of stop times, it's going to ruin their race every weekend.
Done. They'll be done.
They'll be done.
Do better.
Over to you, Stixie. What you got there?
Well, much the same as you. I've got Stroll as an honourable mention.
Yep.
Mate, don't hit the wall twice. Hit it once. Learn. Just don't hit it in the race. It's not that hard, is it?
Probably best not to hit it at all, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Hit it once and then just don't do it again, mate.
Yeah.
Anyway, we won't go on a tangent about Stroll. Leave that for next week.
Not this week.
So my room for improvement, probably not a surprise, but Sargent.
Yep.
Again.
Yep.
Sort of going in on him a little bit. Only 2 pods in, but already ripping shreds off the poor bloke.
I left him alone this week. I didn't think
I can't fucking help it.
It wasn't too bad.
Albon's car was fucked.
Yeah, true.
Who hit him? Was it K-Mag?
Yep.
K-Mag,
that
Albon.
was one of his penalties. And in saying that, Albon to still finish 11th. Yes, 11th. And with a front wing damage.
Albon's car.
We'll get to it later, but I could have been on one there.
He was supposedly fucked.
Yeah.
And Sargent just couldn't get near him. So what are you doing, mate? This is a perfect opportunity to finish in front of your teammate. And you're just proving that your teammate's better than you when he has a broken car.
Yeah.
It's not been a good start for old Sargent. Although, just a disclaimer that last week, did go a little bit hard on old Sargent when he had the incident that looked like he outbraked himself and then sort of was fucking around on the side of the track for a while.
Yeah,
There
our broadcast didn't show that there was any issues, so all we see is tyre screech, off, sit there, back on. We may have jumped to conclusions.
We may have ripped him a
a
little.
little bit.
But to be fair, we should have done a little bit more research, and we will in the future strive to do better. But
We can only improve.
still, he needs to do better too.
Yes.
We will improve at the rate that Sargent does. So the podcast might not last long.
I think we should probably improve a little bit quicker than Sargent.
Anyway, that's enough.
Sorry,
of,
Logan.
Of the roasting of the drivers. Hit me with your best moment from the race, Freezer. What did you enjoy from Jeddah 2024?
Just kind of like that there was a bit more action. Ollie Behrman being the driver of the day, but loving to see a young fella getting in there and taking hold of an opportunity and showing what he can do. I think Haas would be stupid not to at least consider it. At least him being 18, whether he does get picked up next year, which I really hope he does.
Definitely going to be on the radar, isn't he, for the next season?
Yeah, he's going to be the name on a lot of people's lips. But yeah, there's a safety car.
Stood out to you?
A couple of alternate strategies that had to be put in place. It wasn't a bad race.
Honestly, highlight for me, K-Mag's train. Loved it.
Yeah.
A lot of people hated it, but smart, as we've touched on.
Yeah.
Loved that bit of teamwork. And, yeah, it was good at watching there for a while. A little bit of a battle going on, and they just couldn't get past old K-Mag.
Yeah. I love Piastri commenting on being a Mercedes rear wing guru after getting stuck behind the gearbox of Hamilton for so many laps.
Yeah, there was a bit going on there too, wasn't he? Just couldn't quite get him.
He had a couple of dives, but ended up gaining advantage off the track, so I had to give him back. So
yeah,
got stuck there for a bit.
Good battle. Didn't mind it.
Yeah.
Right, one out of the blue for you.
Here we go.
Is Danny Rick washed up, mate? What's going on? First two races, he's looking pretty subpar. Simple question. Is he washed up, yes or no?
No.
No.
Too early. There was a pit stop drama which dropped him down the order from
14th or something like that, 14th, 15th.
Yeah, this is another one of those times where I say don't quote me on it unless you've got facts, but I think it was about 14th. Dropped him to last at that the Stroll crash pit stop saga.
His pace just was unconvincing.
It was off.
I was watching him. He was behind Sargent, and Sargent was just dropping him for a while there.
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on, and then the only reason he caught back up to the back of Sargent was
K-Mag's
train, which was 2 seconds slower through that first sector or whatever. So that's not really a true reflection on Ricciardo's pace. He's literally just caught the train choo-choo, and
he spun himself out on the second to last lap or something.
Not a good look, is it?
No one around. I've seen a shot of Perez seeing it, so you can imagine how Perez would be feeling seeing that when the rumours are that he'd be taking his
He'd be loving it.
Potentially.
He'd be fucking loving it.
Not a person around and just spins himself.
That is a very, rookie first-year Formula One sort of move. It's a bit, I don't know, like maybe he's getting in his head towards the end of the race and thinking, this performance is shit, and he's sort of getting out of the zone and taking a bit too much curb, and boom, before you know it, he's spun and really embarrassed himself. But all we can do is hope next race, Australia, he can pull one out and do something a little better.
Yeah, well, that'll be the test. No excuses for a home race, I don't think.
Got a question here from, it looks like it's from Sticks.
Oh,
yeah.
One of our listeners.
Yeah, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Let's hear it from Sticks.
How many times can Stroll put it in the wall this year before they start to raise a question on whether he deserves that seat or not?
It's probably relevant to the same amount of $1 billion that his dad has.
Is he
invested
immune?
In the company?
So you can't see him, even if he has an absolute horror season and embarrasses himself, and he's the sole reason that team's not performing at the level they should. You can't see him been moved on to another category?
I think the question's got to be asked. Like, you're getting to the stage where daddy's money can only buy you so many years in a race seat. You've got investors and other sponsors that are wanting results. They don't give a damn whether it's, the boss's son or not.
Or even from his dad's point of view, like he's now the owner of Aston Martin. He's not going to want to see his company devalue because the F1 team's having a poor performance, and that comes down to his son letting the team down.
Yeah.
But it's hard because you can't be too hard on Stroll, because when he turns one on, he's a gun. Like, and he can't quite match Fernando, but he can put it up there. He can score points, but he just can have these moments where lapse of concentration, which it wasn't even from a fatigue standpoint that early on in the race. It was only a few laps in. It just a lapse of judgment, bang, into the wall, done.
When you got your teammate finishing 5th, though,
he could have been on for, some points.
Like, you still, there's luck, and then there's consistency, and, you could say a few times he maybe has been unlucky, but if you're hitting the same wall in the same spot twice and sending yourself off,
no good.
Nah. You need to. If that's anyone else, I couldn't see that they would have been in this seat for as long as what he has.
Exactly.
Especially if it was a Red Bull car, ruthless they are.
Well, onto the race review, or the rating, shall I say.
Yeah.
So last week I gave Bahrain a 2 out of 5. Pretty mundane race, not a whole lot to report. This week, I've still been pretty harsh on it. I've given it a 2.5 out of 5.
Wow. Okay.
Somewhat better, but then again, street circuit, you can't expect a whole lot. It's either it's on rails or it's fucking chaos, and it was pretty tame, apart from Stroll's crash causing a little bit of drama with mixed strategies. But 2.5 out of 5 for me. What about you, Freezer? What did you give?
Well, I've gone a bit higher. I've gone a 3.5 out of 5.
Rated it?
Yeah, I think it was pretty good. Probably a bit of that was because of the yawn fest of Bahrain the week before, but there was excitement. There was a new driver coming in to seize an opportunity, who's holding off world champions. There's a little bit of a different tyre strategy because of a crash. There's a safety car.
There's a bit going on. There was a bit.
If there was a second safety car, it would have been very interesting. Gasly's retirement early on. There's a few people that kind of
kept it interesting.
Yeah, maybe even outperformed where their car would be or where we'd expect it to be. Like the Haas cars, that could be a new reality where they are. They might be on that verge of points each week, but going off last season, probably can't see that.
Right, before we jump into the podium predictions for the next round's race in Australia, we need to just gloss over, mate, and have a little bit of friendly pod competition with our predictions from last week. We're going to score just 1 point per correct position on the podium, just to keep it nice and simple. Do you want to fire away with who you had predicted for the podium and who you actually got correct?
Well, I think we'll start with, in third, I had Sergio Perez.
Right, so bow.
No points there.
What about 2 or second, shall I say?
Second, I had Charles Leclerc.
Bow.
And I know this one will get a big tick of approval. I had Max Verstappen.
Bullshit.
So a lonesome
1 point.
1 point there for me.
We'll be keeping track of this throughout the season, and we'll see who's up.
Up to you, Stixie. What do you have for your 3-2-1?
Well, mate, you wouldn't believe it, but I had Leclerc third, Perez second, and Verstappen first. I had a clean sweep, mate. Clean sweep.
If only this wasn't on record, I'd nearly contest it.
So, clean start from me. Well, you got a bit of work to do, mate. Catch up.
A little chirpy over here. What about your bold prediction? Do you want to jump into that? Your little left of field call that you had?
Righto. So, my left of field call for the Australian Grand Prix.
No, who'd you have for your Bahrain one?
Oh, Bahrain.
Can't remember.
Yeah, fucking don't know.
Long time ago. I had... Actually, I know yours if you need me to pull you out of the shit.
Yeah, find me away.
Even though we're a professional outfit here.
Yeah, very professional.
You've definitely got that at your fingertips. You had Ricardo to score
Jesus
a point
Christ.
or multiple points.
You can understand why I forgot that one. You can understand why I forgot that one.
Mate, I don't think you could have nearly been as much wrong.
Fucking hell. Yeah, next.
Well,
What'd you have?
I started with Alpine being no improvement, and I didn't think that was...
That was a piss weak call.
Yeah, it wasn't really enough of a...
Step it up a bit.
Yeah.
What'd you have?
So I went for Albon 10th. I was one position off.
Ooh.
And Magnussen, this is on you, mate. If he didn't have front wing damage, he would have had that 10th.
Fucking oath. Bit of Freezer and K-Mag beef going on here.
No, I wouldn't take him on. He's a scary looking bloke, that one.
Right, we'll move on to the Australian Grand Prix then. Do you want to start with your podium prediction or do you want to go with the left of field call?
Start with the podium.
All right. Fire away.
Righto.
3-1.
3-1. I got in third Oscar Piastri.
Ooh, that's original.
Whoa, I'm first, so it is. I know we're going to be biased to the Australians here, so...
We come up with these predictions separately. We don't know what the others got. And
I can see it in his eyes. I can see it in his smile.
This is... going to bust out to a musical number here in a second.
No, I don't think anyone wants to hear that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Our 3 listeners will turn to 0 real quick.
Yeah. Mum and Dad, if you're listening, please keep listening.
Give you that $5 later.
Yep. So, in second, I had Perez, and first I had Verstappen. I think the Red Bulls are going to be too dominant, and the third for Piastri, I think.
Sneaky chance.
Yeah, he's been putting on a bit of a show, so...
Well, you wouldn't believe it, but I've got the exact same prediction for Australia. So at least I know that I'll be holding this 3-1 lead, this 2-point margin I've got on you after the Australian Grand Prix. I've gone Piastri third, Perez second, Verstappen first.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're...
Last race, I didn't want to go for the Red Bull dominance, but
it's hard to go past it.
I think this one, it might be a bit of a theme.
We might have
there starts to be a bit of a shake-up coming later, but...
We might even have to start predicting third to fifth, just to really spice it up. So
yeah,
that we're
well,
not
I think
having first, second.
Third, fourth, and fifth is the new podium.
Yeah, we might have to start looking at that. We'll keep that in the back of the noggin.
Good shout. Anyone that's listening to the pod, give us some feedback. What do you think? Should we go first to fifth in future predictions? Take Red Bull out of it a little bit more.
Might give us a little bit more to work with. Right, left of field call, Australian Grand Prix.
I think you should take us away with this one.
Well, I've gone, again, probably quite biased, but I'm going to have 2 Aussies in the points. So very similar to last week's. I'm backing in Danny Rick, and he's going to fucking let me down.
You've gone for a multi.
Yeah, going for the multi.
That's big. You got to have both of them pull it off.
2 Aussies in the points. What do you reckon? Odds?
I can agree with...
Piastri.
Yeah.
Oh, pastry.
But... that was like a, anyway. But, pardon me, got too excited again. So I've gone for my left of field.
Hit me with it.
Which I'm not sure if it's enough, but anyway. Piastri on the podium.
Yeah, right. I'll give it to you. Left of field enough, barely.
Because I know he finished fourth last week. Well,
this
week.
This round.
I'm already talking about it as if I'm in Australia. Anyway, we are in Australia. We're busy.
You lost the plot, mate.
getting a bit late. It's past my bedtime. Yeah, I've even though he's just done Jeddah and he's finished fourth, I still think it's a feat for a McLaren to be up that high. You know, they're still battling. Obviously, the Aston's there of Alonso. If Stroll can put it together for a whole race, you know, he may be up that areas as well. You got the two Mercedes. If they're not having to split strategies, I've got no doubt that Hamilton would have been where Russell is or even higher. And then, you know, Behrman or Sainz, I don't think it would really matter who it is next week, next race at Australia.
It'll be a massive effort for him to put on the podium, but not past him. I can see him doing it.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's just as easy that he could be third as he could be eighth or ninth. So
fingers crossed.
I'm hoping podiums are good enough. If you think otherwise, let me know.
Righto. Well, thanks for listening to another episode of the Best of the Rest podcast. I'm Sticks.
And I'm Fraser.
Rightio. Catch you next episode.
See ya.
Cheers.
Oh, look at this. This is not a dog. This is a piece of shit.